Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have Adam Rosendahl here today, founder of Late Nite Art, expert, artist, creator, speaker, facilitator, and my friend. Welcome to the show, Adam.
What's up, Majeed? Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Late Nite Art, spelled Nite.
That's correct.
What is late night art?
It has been many things. It's been in some state of evolution over the last 15 years. It started a long time ago. The initial version of Late Night Art was when it was a nightlife event in Vancouver, Canada. And it was kind of a creative project that I had started with a friend where it was a three-course dinner and there was a sort of collaborative art process where we're getting strangers to connect with each other in a unique way. But it evolved from that into now what it is I have a team of 8 facilitators, and we lead this practice. It's a methodology, and it's a practice that we lead mostly with leadership and executive offsites. It happens at all times of day, and it's become a really powerful way to turn a group of people from strangers or from new colleagues into a more connected community in a very short period of time. And it's often used in onboarding and leadership development to help people hit and achieve their high priority goals, but basically building psychological safety and a foundation of trust really quickly before they get into the more intense work of an offsite.
So offsites are where corporate teams go and they're supposed to have some sort of breakthrough. They're supposed to have some sort of like bonding experience. And there's a lot of different people they could hire. Like sometimes they hire, performers, musicians. Sometimes they hire facilitators that are supposed to teach them. I've done public speaking training at an offsite for leadership teams and sales teams. How is this late night art different?
I think that, like I said, what we have done has evolved over the many years that I've been doing it. I've been running Late Night Art as a business for 13 years, and we've done over 700 events across 22 countries. And on the kind of deeper side of what we do, we're partnering with Adobe and Autodesk and LinkedIn, and we're working with them on 3 to 6 to 9 month contracts to help solve disconnection. So part of what's really different about Late Night Art is that it's not like a fun team building event. It's not like an entertainment service. We have a team of really experienced consultants who are helping kind of diagnose the culture challenges a lot of teams and leaders are facing right now during this crazy moment that we're in. And then our program is a mix of both helping people help each other. So it creates a collaborative learning environment, but it's also getting people out of work mode and kind of breaking the business as usual kind of humdrum that people might expect. And so I'd say what's different about it is that it's a mix of training and experience. And it
Mhm.
has a novelty and kind of out of the box factor that gets people into a very different state. But it's also very effective in helping people achieve their big goals in an offsite kind of context.
Amazing. I am looking forward to, in this conversation, unpacking the experience itself and also unpacking your journey as an entrepreneur because myself and my audience, we are building our expert speaker businesses and we are looking at how do we land the kind of contracts that you've landed 700 times now, it sounds like. So, I'll take our listeners back to Guatemala, where I had the pleasure of experiencing late night art. I walked into this room and I saw a long table with a long covered in like a brown sheet of paper and lots of colorful markers and pencils and your facilitation. So walk us through kind of what's the experience like and you know, how to move people through the skepticism walking into the room and actually help people drop into the experience.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our clients are unexpected, not people that you would expect to be picking up a paintbrush. So we work with law enforcement executives, scientists, doctors, um, politicians, bankers. And so just like last Sunday, I was at an event that was run by a venture capital firm that was bringing together 30 female founders who are all VCs who are coming from all over the world. And this was the first 2 hours of them meeting each other over a 3-day summit. They walk into the room, there's these long tables covered in art supplies, there's music playing. They all sit down, and over the course of 2 hours, I have a microphone and I'm leading them through this process where they're connecting with the person across from them and sharing parts of their life outside of their world of work to help them kind of humanize each other beyond the roles that they play and the companies that they own. And then after each prompt, they rotate one chair to the right. So they're sort of building off each other's ideas. Each time that they connect with somebody, there's some kind of visual component. For instance, we talked about the journey that has led them to becoming a founder and becoming a VC. So some of the highs and lows of their life, and they drew that on the paper using the metaphor of a river. So they kind of drew their own river of life. And then they described that drawing to the person across from them. And it created sort of like a visual that made it easier to talk about really difficult things that have happened in their life. And so that's just one example that you can imagine all these women, they were drawing the rivers of their life and their journey that has led them to this moment of being in this room and being in this really competitive program that they've all been accepted to. Um, and after that whole process, they would rotate one to the right and continue to build off these this drawing that's evolving on the table. So it's not really about the art that's created, but the art supplies create like a really interesting pattern interrupt for people to
Yeah.
think differently about their life and their work. And it
Hmm.
generally just deepens the conversation on a really beautiful way.
Hmm. I heard once about mind maps. Tony Buzan invented mind maps, and they said if you use colored markers when making mind maps, and if you use curvy lines, you tend to have more creative ideas. And on a related note, I also heard that when people are brainstorming and there are colored markers on the table, even if they're not even used, they tend to have more creative ideas. So uh, that jives.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they'll share, I haven't picked up a wax pastel or a watercolor brush since I was a kid. Many, many people, this is not part of
Right.
their practice. And there is generally this feeling of, people are like, I'm comfortable with dance, but I don't draw. I do this, but I don't do that. But
Hmm.
a big part of late night art is um, getting across the idea that you don't have to be a professional artist to use the arts in your work, and that using the visual arts is just one really powerful way to build connection. And
Yeah.
it has a lot of benefits, of course, of like reducing stress and, like you said, like enhancing creative ideas.
Yeah.
But it also has a novelty factor that in a really powerful way kind of melts down the power hierarchy between people who have different roles if they happen to be paired with their manager or like the executive of a company. Um, it's a really amazing way to break down the barriers that
Hmm.
sort of stand between people in a
Hmm.
workplace.
Adam, you and I met at an experience design residency, and we got to really think deeply about designing experiences. And one of my beliefs about experiences is they start first in your imagination with
Mm.
the description. And then when you walk in the room, you can really win so much of the heart of your participant in seconds, either because there's music playing or because there's lighting or just that walk-in experience. I don't know if you consider smell when people are coming in, but I bet you do. And I'd love to just hear from you, like, how do you design the experience to win and impact people even before it starts?
Yeah, I do think about smell. I mean, I always have flower arrangements every single event, 700
Flowers.
events, every single one we've had fresh flowers, and I always have eucalyptus in the flower arrangements. So people every single time they walk up and they're like, "Oh man, it smells amazing in here." And I think that's just one of those things that's subtle, but it changes how people feel.
Yeah.
I feel like the way to kind of open up the room even like before the event starts. You and I both are huge fans of curated music and the power of the right song in the right moment. And I
Yeah.
really think people understate, like, and they don't quite realize the power of music to change the tone of a room. So I'm a big fan of, just spending a lot of time creating the playlist before I do events. A lot of the events that we do are international. They're in many different countries, but they also include people who are flying in from many different cultures. And I do a lot of research around where people are coming from to actually curate the music to make sure it represents all the different places that people are coming from. So there's one person perhaps that's coming from Japan, and when I play this one unique old Japanese folk song at this moment, I see this person light up, and then they come
Yeah.
up to me afterward and they're like, when you played that song, I felt like I was at home. And that
Yeah.
happens over and over and over again. And it's also a very quick way to build trust and rapport with people right off the bat. Like
Good one.
I was in front of 500 people and I was blasting this Nigerian Afrobeat song. This woman who's from Nigeria runs up to the stage and she's like, "How do you know this song? Like, I love this
Mm-hmm.
song." And she's dancing. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
we already won, you know?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yeah.
I love the preparation. I love like, these little touches of like the one person from Japan. Talk to me about your preparation process. So I'm getting the sense of like every experience is customized. And I know that when I'm hired to be a facilitator or a presenter, I'm not being hired to give my performance. I'm being hired to help the client achieve their goals, which means I need to understand what their goals are and figure out how this experience is going to advance that agenda. So, what's your research process? Are you sending out survey links? Are you making phone calls? And what are some of the not so obvious but really great ways that you prepare and customize?
Sure. Yeah, so we have a design call with every client before we start creating the curriculum for the event. The design call, a big part of it is around the culture of the team and the company. So learning if they've just hired two people in the last 6 months, learning if there's been like a shift in leadership, they're like introducing three new values. Like there's a lot of information. Um, and even like what the theme is of their 3-day summit and sort of how people are walking into the room if they're walking in knowing that, they just had a lot of their friends just got laid off and there's a kind of like a sensitivity in the room, or if they just have had this like banner year and they're in like complete like celebration mode, it really changes the tone of how we are running our event and the questions that
Mm,
I ask.
mm.
Um, so that design call is a big part of the preparation. From that, we're customizing the flow and the curriculum of each event that we do. And I'd say, it's partly custom and it's partly, we have a system and a method that works extremely well based on different circumstances. So we're kind of like drawing from our all the curriculum and all the different prompts and things that I use, knowing what works, and then also just customizing for light pieces so it really feels like it's being um, it's made just for them. Yeah, but I don't necessarily need to know. A lot of our clients are in tech and have very nuanced roles and the work that they do. I don't, I might not fully understand what the company does, but recognizing that every company, every team is just a collection of human beings. And a big part of what we're doing is how do we help this group of humans really connect with each other on a deeper level and form a sense of we, so they have a shared group identity that they might not have had before. So they look around the room at the end and they feel like more cohesive.
And do you deliver anything with the experience? Like, for example, one of my first corporate jobs, I had just gotten hired at this high tech firm, and when you walk in, there's this painting, and the CEO said, "Our last year's all team meeting, we hired some painter, and we all like took a brush, and then the painting represents how we are the boat in the stormy seas, and like that's like the leave behind of that." Team building experience. Do you have one? Do you take a picture? Do you have something that you give to the client?
Yeah, so at the end of the events that we do, there's this long table. It's covered in this kind of all these different art pieces that people have built off each other that represents their stories and their ideas and the gifts that they're giving to each other. And we get people to cut out a piece of it. They take it back to their office. They put it in their house. Um, and it's wild. I went to one of my clients' houses 9 years later and she had it on her refrigerator. And I was like, what does that mean to you? Like, why did you keep that? And it sometimes carries the spirit of that moment or of that event. And so it does have a lot of power. Sometimes it looks like child art. Sometimes it looks
Hmm.
really beautiful.
Hmm.
So again, it's not as much about like the product, but um, yeah, and of course, sometimes it's like a group photo, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And the photos from the event, a lot of our companies, they'll use it in marketing because there's a lot of just like expressive faces, art supplies, flowers. It has this kind of like elevated feeling to the whole thing.
yeah.
Um, so it's fun to see that every once in a while we'll see, photos from our events that are used for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, that's the outcome. The
Cool.
main outcome is the relationships and the friendships that are built, and the kind of trust and kind of solid ground that people establish with each other so that they could do the harder decisions right after.
Mm, mm. Now, you've managed to do something that a lot of experts, facilitators, and speakers have not done, which is you've cloned yourself with your 8 other facilitators. And I imagine that must have required you to actually figure out what is the formula, what is the process, document it, train them, quality control. Tell me what was that like for you? What did you learn through that process? And what are you continuing to learn as someone who has a very unique experience, but you want to create excellence and consistency across all these experiences that you're not personally at?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's different ways to run a small business. And as a speaker, I have a lot of friends who have decided to just go the solopreneur route where they are the one thought leader, speaker,
Yeah.
delivering the content, and they, are receiving 100% of the revenue. Um, I just didn't want to do this alone. I thrive in collaboration. I love working with others and co-creating. I find it a lot more fun and fulfilling. Um, so pretty early on, I brought in facilitator number two. I think that was 2014. That was Jenny Sauerklein, who I was just with this last 4 days with the Experience House Mastermind.
Mm,
Um, and Jenny is a world-class facilitator, experience designer. And so right from the beginning, I was bringing in people who are already operating at a 10 out of 10. It wasn't like I needed to train them in the methodology, but their executive presence, their ability to build trust in a room when they walk in front of 500 people, they were already operating at a very high level. So that's what I was interested in when I was bringing people into my team was people who had sort of expert level experience in front of a room, but who could bring their own unique twist to the process.
hmm.
And I really believe that, the different identities that people hold, the different cultural backgrounds, it allows them to connect with different audiences in a different way. So I typically like to have like a male female dynamic with co-facilitation in front of the room. Um,
Hmm.
but we also have been doing workshops in Spanish and workshops in different countries where we'll have translators, and so it's powerful,
Wow.
like I said, to have people who represent different cultural traditions. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's been interesting figuring out how like what are the core competencies of a late night art facilitator, and how do I train people up so that they're like operating at a high level in all of these competencies. The four roles that we've decided on are facilitation, experience design, executive presence, and event production. So those are some like four of the many hats that someone has to wear to do this job really well.
What do you mean by executive presence?
Part of it is when someone walks in front of the room, like I said, we have such a range of clients. So, they could be engineers, lawyers, scientists, um, doctors, executives from a tech organization. Somebody who's able to walk into a room and command the presence and respect of a group of people who are coming from high level leadership positions and is able to build trust and rapport very quickly so that they can in a seamless way do the work, without having a lot of that, there's naturally going to be a lot of skepticism and hesitancy and resistance and why are we doing this art thing? And, there's a lot of stuff that comes up for people early on. So having
Yeah.
someone that's able to hold the practice that we do with the level of gravitas and confidence in the work so that it people are able to let go of their doubts pretty quickly and just drop in is very
Yeah.
important. So,
Cool.
um, yeah, when I think of people who have executive presence in the work that we do, it's generally there's a feeling, that people trust them quickly.
Mm.
And, there's a lot of people, myself included, who have a pretty strong resistance to authority and being told what to do. So
Yeah.
it's a very nuanced thing with, us working with leaders, especially, and how do we be not in an authoritative role where we're like raising our voice on a microphone or like kind of demanding people's attention if they're talking, but
Yeah.
have a certain level of presence that just it sort of commands that respect in a way that feels natural and organic, and it flows, and people don't feel forced.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha.
that's a tricky thing to teach, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. But easy to spot, easy to
it's a
feel it.
it's immediate,
Yeah, it's unmistakable.
it's unmistakable, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, and
Um,
when people don't have it, it can be messy. The workshop can feel messy
mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
there's more of a power struggle with the
Mm-hmm.
audience and the speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a delicate thing to hold the space, to allow people to express, but also to contain the people that need to be contained and bring out the people that need to be uh coaxed a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
One of my favorite facilitator phrases is, let me pause you there for a second. Sometimes they're going, and some people they just need to talk because they're just processing and they're just talking. But an unskilled facilitator doesn't know how to end that speaker. Let me pause you there for a second.
Wow. Yeah, and it's a bold thing to do to jump in when someone else is speaking.
Yeah, yeah,
I agree when a
yeah,
facilitator doesn't intervene, like when the entire group is feeling like they're a victim or they're like being
yeah.
forced to
You
listen to
can
someone
feel it
else.
in people's posture. They start squirming in their chair a little bit. They
Oh
start,
yeah.
they start looking at you like, "Hey, are you gonna keep us
Yeah,
going here?" Yeah,
who's the leader here? Yeah.
yeah,
Like
good one.
are you gonna save us?
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like there's some Jedi sort of elements to helping
yeah,
people close their statement without jumping in and
yes,
intervening, but
yes. It's
yeah,
delicate.
it's delicate.
Okay, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and ask you about building the business. And you've been doing it for how long now? 15 years?
I started Late Night Art as a business in 2014. I've been running events since 2012.
Okay. So 10, 11, 13 years. Um, so maybe you might do things a little differently if you were building today, but I'd like to just start with like, how do you close a sale? How do you get a lead? How do you get a sale? And I'm thinking of the person who's listening who's thinking, man, I would love to do corporate facilitation experiences. I'd love to get hired for offsites. I'm really good at what I do, but how do I get that contract?
It's funny how most people who are entrepreneurs, like that's the first question they ask me is like, how do you close business? How
Yeah.
do you actually get work? And I
Yeah.
think often what I say is I've built Late Night Art in a very relational way. I have been leading events consistently since 2012. And I've been most of that time in the San Francisco Bay Area. Um, for the first 3 to 4 years, I was leading public events where I was doing an event once a month with 40 to 60 people. There would be a three-course dinner, and I was running this experience. And during that time, I think I just built a lot of goodwill and a lot of relationships with what I was doing. There was sort of like a
Mm,
ripple that started early on in terms of reputation and brand recognition, and just like people's trust in me. And so, in 2012, for instance, there are people who attended my event who worked at Meta and Instagram and Southwest Airlines and LinkedIn, and they were coming with their partner or like whatever. It was like a fun night out. But that ended up leading to later down the road, them being like, "Oh, remember that thing that we did? That would be a really cool thing to do at our offsite." I started early on building out like a Yelp page and Google reviews and kind of like getting on that so I could build out some more of an online presence. But I still, for the first 4 years, I didn't think it was a business and I wasn't interested in having it be my full-time thing. So that was sort of an organic thing that happened when people started asking me to come. Um, and so as I started getting invitations, I started taking a lot more seriously. And I'd say the best way that I got business was building really close relationships with my clients early on, who then just spread the word. And the referral engine started strong. And a lot of those clients have continued to switch to a new organization every, 3 to 6 years. And a lot of our businesses repeat clients. Like I've worked with the
Hmm.
same people consistently. Um, our biggest clients right now are Adobe, Autodesk, LinkedIn, and it's been amazing to see also how building a strong relationship within an organization and how that can spread. When you
Yeah.
just basically do good work and they will come in some way. That's been my
Mm.
marketing strategy, and keep good relationships and just keep in touch with people. Um,
Anything specific you do when you say build good relationships and keep in touch with people that might not be so obvious?
yeah, yeah, I'd say as much as I can, I'm trying to walk my walk, and a big part of what we're doing is the humanity and the kind of kindness and just relating to people as a friend and as a human, and not just from a transactional standpoint. So, I mean, I'd say a lot of my clients are my friends, and in that way, like we have gone to conferences together. We've like had like meals and things like that. And it's not just like when's the next gig? There there is like
Yeah.
there's a lot of shared moments I think that built the foundation and trust that led to them being able to think about me as someone that they could trust to bring into their team. So yeah, I think there's a lot of touch points that are needed to build the trust to make a sale. And I think that I have been going the inbound marketing route in which I am creating content and building relationships and like kind of putting out into the world who I am and what we're up to, and then watching people come to us. And that's been the strategy from the beginning, as opposed to trying to grab people, trying to go out there and
Hmm.
like fish for clients. So, yeah.
Hmm.
But I do think, yeah, I mean, part of it is I I would like to figure it out even more. It's like I think it's not luck. I think it's a lot of goodwill and a lot of free events and like experiences with people that have led to every once in a while somebody calling in from a business context and having that kind of ripple and build. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, building the flywheel.
Have you found anything that has worked well for you in terms of turning one contract into multiple contracts? Like, for example, you go do something for Adobe and then you say to Adobe, hey, why don't we do this once a month at all of your sites across the country? Or why don't we do this once a quarter? Have you found ways to sort of expand within a client, within an account?
Yeah, that's like the magic question. How do you turn one into many?
Yeah.
Um, and especially like every entrepreneurial course or network will try to help figure out how do you not just have repeat clients, but how do you actually continue to work within that ecosystem? So
Yeah.
just way easier to just keep working with the same people, and go deeper and deeper instead of just having one-off events.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I have a system for that. I'd say like that's still part of where late night art is emerging into is we've started doing these longer term contracts where we do a series of virtual and in-person events that are
Yep.
helping people solve disconnection and challenges around collaboration, cross-functional collaboration. Um, and so part of it, I think, is like proving our worth and our value with one event. And from that event, having a debrief call, and on that call having some strategy for, you know, one event can only kind of touch on a problem. It can't really solve a problem, but a series of events is what it takes to actually address like deeper organizational culture challenges. So there is a recognition, and people know that, there needs to be some kind of follow-up and consistency to change behavior. And so if they really want to solve the problem, it's going to be a deeper partnership and engagement.
Hmm.
So generally
Great.
it's kind of like opening with that initial event, having some awareness with the client early on that this is not, we can just do this one event, or we can also help you in a deeper way to solve this issue. And what that's going to take is going to be a series of virtual and in-person events.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, thank you for kind of pulling back the curtain on the business side of things and the creativity side of things, the experience itself. Um, Anything else you want to share?
I have been a really big fan of this book, uh, Your Brain on Art. I don't know if you can see
Cool.
that.
Yeah.
And this was written a year and a half ago by this women, Ivy Ross and Susan Mag-Salmon.
Yeah.
She's the head of hardware design at Google. Susan works at Johns Hopkins University. And the two of them have basically started what they're calling the creativity revolution. And anyone who has any doubts around the impact of the arts in a business setting, it's pretty nice to be able to point to this book and see that like there are infinite ways that the arts are helping people in this crazy world of multitasking and back-to-back
Mm.
Zoom meetings
Mm.
for what's actually needed for innovation right now,
Yep.
to create a space for our minds to settle, but also to think in more creative ways.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to be on this wave of the creativity revolution and the need for human connection in the age of AI and automation, and just how there are so many people out there who are working from home remotely who do not feel connected to their colleagues, and their whole life is their work, and ultimately are very, very isolated. And so, like, how do we, late night art has been one way, but there is a need for so much more to figure out how do we actually bring people back together in a way that helps them feel a sense of belonging and connection with each other. And if we don't do that, people are falling through the cracks, so
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
see it as, yeah, obviously people know about the crisis of loneliness, but it's finding unique ways to address this issue in a business context and help people unveil parts of themselves that they don't usually share at work. It feels essential for people's like health and well-being. And yeah, so often when I'm looking at a group of people, I could just feel the sensitivity and the vulnerability of just being a human being right now and how many challenges people are facing. And like it feels so important to be able to do something that helps people feel less alone and more connected to one another. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool.
so that's ultimately like the bigger why behind why I do
Yeah.
what I do.
I'd like to know your take on AI. It almost seems to me like learning certain skills is kind of obsolete at this point. Like, why learn how to draw when you can just type in or speak, draw a picture of a, monkey driving a car and boom, make it in 10 different styles. Boom, it's done. I do still think there is some creativity required to prompt the AI. But what's your take on AI and art and creativity and how that's becoming, more a muscle that we need to kind of train?
Yeah, I think part of the Your Brain on Art and part of Late Night Art and what I do is a lot of it is it's not about the end product and creating a beautiful picture. It's
Yeah.
about in the process of drawing how that just shifts the way people treat each other and the way that they're connecting, and also like the thoughts and ideas that are being generated. And so I think that the arts are an amazing vehicle and tool for in a learning environment. And by kind of skipping the step and just like getting everything to be automated or to be like kind of fed to us through prompts on AI, it feels like a missed opportunity. Well, there's just a lot that's missed, I think, especially this the whole realm of connection to self and to others, and how do we actually in a creative way like create space for new connections to happen in a more organic way. and how is trust built between people? Because yeah, when we just type things in and it's just like immediately fed to us, it doesn't create the kind of like uh, the ground and foundation that's required for actually building these relationships with others. Um, yeah, so I think it's like the process of the arts is a big part of what I do as opposed to the
Hmm.
product. So,
Hmm.
you can have a AI draw you your monkey on the hill,
Yeah.
but in the process of doing that, there's so much more that comes through it by doing it
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tactile nature of things of actually like picking up art tools and drawing on the page has a visceral and like a powerful impact that I think a lot of people don't really understand. And a big part of this book is just talking about people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all these different diseases and how the arts have actually been a rehabilitation tool to bring them back to life.
Right.
And I think on a minor level, just in terms of stress and anxiety and um, the kind of like existential dread that a lot of people are feeling, there's a lot of ways that this can be part of the solution.
Very cool. Adam Rosendahl, Late Night Art. How do people find more about your work and how do people contact you to hire you to bring your late night art experience into their corporate offsites?
Yeah, absolutely. So latenightart.com is the website. Part of that, you can book a call with me to have a discovery call on the website. You can also on my main site, and I think I shared with you, Majid, is I have a monthly drawing and a playlist. I draw some leader in the realm of organizational culture, creativity, and human connection every month. So somebody who I find really inspiring, I'll do a portrait and what I call illuminated notes. And I'll put that out along with a playlist each month. And that's just like kind of a easy and simple way to get inspired and get some new ideas. So that's, I'd say, the best way to kind of keep in touch with me is through that newsletter.
You've got the best playlists.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, Adam, appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, so great to have this conversation. Appreciate the thoughtful questions.